Welcome to another edition of the Big Nick Energy Podcast. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Pods, and Podbean. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Join our Facebook group. Join our Chalkboard. It's a messaging board app designed around gambling and sports. Our next giveaway on Chalkboard will be at 250, just so everyone knows. I have a super awesome, very special guest today. One of my idols in the podcast and the Knicks content creating game. One of the top two, I would say, between you and CP, one way or another. Jonathan Macri, how are you doing of Knicks Film Skool today?
I'm doing okay. Honored to be mentioned with CP. CP is a long time, very good friend. Still remember seeing him on the LIRR. Both of us going back home from like watch parties, like way back in the day. But yeah, it's been quite a journey for both of us. But yeah, happy to be here and talk about whatever you want. But it's happy to talk about anything when the Knicks are good. I'll say that.
Oh my God, Macri, it's phenomenal. They've won 7 in a row. They signed Josh Hart. Josh Hart's like Ben Roethlisberger his rookie season. He's not the best player on the team, but they don't lose when he's in there for some reason. It just blows my mind, honestly.
That's a good throwback. What did they win?
They won 15-1. 15-1 with that dude.
Every game until the AFC Championship game. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, just handing the ball off. Give it to Jerome Bettis and watch what happens.
Listen, man, it worked, right?
It did. So, Jonathan, I'm glad you're on. I just told you this before we started recording. You have your own podcast. It's Knicks Film Skool. You record every day. Anyone that's listening to this outside of my immediate family and friends knows where to find you and probably listens to you before they listen to me. So I really wanted to get a feel for like how you got to where you're at. Cause much like, I'm pretty sure your story starts a little similar to mine. We probably have different college upbringing, but you were a bartender at one point, correct?
Oh yeah, no, I've had, oh my God, what careers have I not had? I mean, I went to college for business.
Same.
I went to college for business. I decided after investing 3 years and a lot of money in that, I didn't want to go into business anymore. I decided I was going to try to be an actor. That lasted for like a summer. And then
there's got to be more to a story than you skip over that. How were your auditions? What did you try out for?
That's it. That's the thing. I went to a summer conservatory and like I did pretty well. And they were like, you could probably go out and get some roles as like the stock Italian guy. But so the thing with me, I've always had a very big fear of failure. So I wasn't going out on auditions because I couldn't mentally process like, well, what if they tell me I'm not good? So that like an actor, if you want to be if you want to be an actor, you got to be ready to go on 20 auditions and get rejected 20 times.
Yeah.
Or more. Anyway, so that didn't last very long. And then I was like, I fell into bartending and running a few bars. And then, you get to a point where like, all right, I got to grow up and do something. And I went to law school and being a lawyer. And then that was really kind of what led to this because I practiced law for about 5 years and really did not like it and wanted to do anything else, literally. But something that just made me feel good every day. And that's how I kind of got into teaching because I did this program and basically switched from law into teaching in the span of 3 months. Long story short. But
that's a very quick turnover. That's very fast.
Yeah, shout out New York City teaching fellows. But the end result of all of this was me being on a train every day, commuting an hour into Brooklyn and an hour back home to Massapequa Park. And in that 2 hours a day, I wanted to fill the time with something that was enjoyable for me and I felt was fulfilling. And like I'd always been into writing, written about sports back in high school. I just never thought about it as a possible career.
Do you think part of that went into the fear of failure you had? Because I feel like I've always had a fear of writing. It's like I feel like I could write pages and pages of sports content, but I never start because it's like no one will pay for this. Who would read this? Is that what's made you hold back for a while?
Dude, I went to a pretty good high school and like there were students in my high school who went on to do like really impressive things in the field in different fields. Like, I don't know if you heard, like I had Pablo Torre on my pod, whatever it was a few months ago. Like Pablo was 2 years younger than me, but like, I'm Colin Jost, who, watch on Saturday Night Live. Like he's shout out him and ScarJo.
I work for the WWE network through like a very circumvented way. I've seen Colin Jost on WrestleMania TV over and over again.
No, so like anyway, but the difference between me and a lot of the people that I went to high school with was I had absolutely no belief in my ability to do anything other than like the norm. So the notion of like a career in sports writing or a career in like any kind of media or anything like that was just very, very far fetched, which again, it plays into like I went to an acting conservatory and didn't actually really make any effort to become an actor.
Yeah.
I was petrified of the idea of that I was going to try and fail. And at that time in my life, it's just something I couldn't handle, which is again, why the only reason I started doing it is I essentially had time to kill. And I would like write stuff on, I think I have like a Tumblr, and my couple of buddies
Throwback.
might
Wow.
read it. Yeah, no, that's seriously, that's what I wrote. And a couple of buddies would read it. And then finally I was doing enough of it where I was like, you know what, let me go on Twitter. And I think I went on Twitter in 2016, and I would try to put stuff out there. And then from there, I was like, you know what? Let me see if there's a blog out there who would actually want to put something I wrote on their website. And that's really kind of how it started. And like you asked about there's a very long-winded answer to a question about a podcast. I haven't gotten to the podcasting part yet.
It's all
After
good.
I
This is lovely. I love this.
But after I had been, kind of blogging about the NBA and the Knicks for a while, JB, Jeffrey Bellone, shout out to Metsfix
Yep.
and the
That was
Metropolitan
actually my next
newsletter.
question.
Yeah, no. So he was with the Knicks wall, and he kind of, I won't go into detail, but that's my like dream at the time was to write for the Knicks wall because they were, and you could argue they still are the preeminent Knicks blog out there. And
Knicks Views on Twitter literally just released today. They still have the most
yes,
following throughout
still
Twitter.
the most followers. I saw that. Yeah. So shout out to them. They've been doing great work for a very long time, but it didn't happen when I was trying to make inroads. And JB kind of noticed me being just very active on Twitter, like responding to everybody and the whole thing. So he's like, "Hey, this guy's really active. We should maybe get him involved," because he was involved with them at the time. So that's how I met JB. And then we were there together for a period of time, and then we kind of decided we wanted to branch off on our own because I went to him. I was like, "Hey, I kind of want to do a podcast. Like, I don't feel like there's a great Knicks podcast out there." And he's like, "That's funny because I kind of want to do my own thing and I want to do a newsletter." And he started the newsletter. I started, the podcast, and we brought along the Knicks Film School name, which had been this, Twitter account that people, all the old heads will remember those old Ron Baker videos.
Yeah.
And that's really it. I mean, and I'm not gonna be like, oh, I never thought anybody would listen to it. Like I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think people would listen. But the notion that it would grow to become what it has is like I just feel very fortunate. That's all.
What made you decide or feel internally that your fear or failure was not there nearly as much for podcasting versus writing? I know your writing led you to the podcast itself, but when you took the leap, were you like way more people are going to listen and read what you're writing? Like, what was that thought process like?
Again, the writing was something where it was gradual over the course of time where it literally took me years and years to muster up the chutzpah is the only word I could think of to actually submit it to like a blog. So podcasting, I never had that fear. I have one skill that I was born with. I am not good at anything except one thing, and that is the ability to talk and make people think that I know what I'm talking about.
The gift of gab
The
is a
only
great Italian thing, especially if you went to law school.
Well, yeah, and it probably helped me get into law school, and I think it served me well while I was there. And I thought that's part of why I thought I would have a long career as an attorney until I realized that I didn't actually like the practice of law. Neither here nor there. But yeah, no, I
That's fair.
never kind of worried about it, and like it wasn't until I got Andrew came aboard, and shout out to Andrew Claudio, who's to say he is Knicks Film School at this point. All that he does in every way, shape, or form. But like
he's an amazing producer for you guys, and he does way more than producing at this point within the years he's been there.
There isn't a thing that he doesn't do and doesn't do excellently. I'm actually going to be recording with him as soon as I get off with you because we got to do our Patreon pod for this week. Anyway, he kind of said to me after I don't know how long we had been working together, but he's like, "This is so easy for you, and you take that for granted." And I'm like, "Because it's just talking about something. It's talking about the Knicks. Like what? That's all it is. It's just talking about the Knicks. Like this, I do this anyway. I'm just doing it in front of a microphone, and I get that's kind of how I've always viewed it. So there was nothing to get over for me for the podcast, and I just I hope people would learn about it, and if they learned about it, I hope they would come back for more. That's really all there is.
I think you've definitely proven to accomplish that over the time. I wanted to ask you, because we're at the point as a smaller building podcast. I've been doing this for 2 years now. Our listeners have grown slowly but surely. When was it that because you're sponsored by MSG now, which is like the creme de la creme of what we're trying to
Well,
do. You're literally sponsored by the arena, or you were at least.
We were briefly sponsored by the arena, and then I won't get into the details, but through no fault of our own, that much I could say. We don't have that sponsorship anymore. However, I am proud to say we have many other sponsorships that I'm proud of, and have had over the years, and like guests and all that stuff. But anyway, no.
What is the process of going through getting sponsors and stuff like that when they start reaching out to you, and it's not like, can you help run our Ponzi pyramid scheme? Like, what is that process like from a business negotiating tactic?
Oh, I don't do any of that. I mean, we're with Blue Wire. Shout out to Blue Wire, great podcasting company that has a ton of great pods for
they have thousands at this point. It's honestly unbelievable. They are a conglomerate.
Yeah, no, it's wild, and they deal with all that stuff. I mean, occasionally I will have someone reach out to me directly that may be interested in advertising with us specifically. Shout out to my good friends at Weiss and Rosenblum, who's a local personal injury firm. But again, that's organic. That's someone who read me, had a brother who ran a law firm, and was like, hey, we're huge Knicks fans, me and my brother. I think maybe you guys would be good partners, and that's kind of how that generated. But I don't deal with any of the business stuff, and that's kind of how I like it. I want to just do what I do, and I write and I talk, and that's enough. That's where I like to be.
That's fair. I am going to work a little bit. I have approximately 7 more minutes with you, give or take. So I'm going to try to work a couple basketball questions in there.
Sure. Yeah.
You are obviously a father as of recently. You're married. Congratulations on all those things. You follow the Knicks very clearly every single day of your life. How hard is it for you to actually follow or get a hold of other teams to actually keep unbiasedness of like watching the Sixers, watching the Celtics, the Raptors, etc., within the confines of your writing ability, your brain being able to talk about them, etc.?
So I'm talking to you, and I have Philly Dallas on the TV in front of me. Although I promise I'm focusing mostly on you, but I do.
It's on my Fubo behind the Zoom, so I guess.
There you go. High scoring game. Geez. Anyway, yeah. Although I guess that's the NBA in 2023. I'll answer it this way. My favorite thing to do. This is going to sound messed up. My favorite thing to do is not watch the Knicks. My favorite thing to do is watch other NBA games when the Knicks are good. Because watching the Knicks at this point, it's not, I don't want this to come off like it's become a job. That's not what I'm saying. But there is not a pressure, but like when I'm watching the Knicks, I am thinking of like, okay, the repercussions of a win, the repercussions of a loss. Like, how am I going to phrase this? Like, what am I going to write about? So it's like, I don't sit back and relax and watch the Knicks. I haven't done that for arguably probably years.
Right.
So my happy place, my relaxing place is when I sit down. I watch, like Sixers Mavs right now. And the only reason I'm able to do this, as my wife walks in the door, this is her one day where she's out, is because having 2 kids is extraordinarily draining. And my wife is often
God
tired,
bless you, so man. I'm a couple years away, but it's gonna happen.
No, it's one's 6, one's 2, and she's just exhausted at the end of the day. So like a lot of times, like 8:30, like my wife will just be like, "All right, I'm going to bed." And like if she ever has energy, she's always my first priority to spend time with her. But like that's just the reality. Like during the week, at least, that's just not a reality because again, she's exhausted, and I'm exhausted too, but like I just love NBA basketball, and I will, she'll laugh at me because like, it'll be a night like tonight where I'm going on like 3.5 hours sleep from yesterday, and I guarantee you I'll be up until 11:30 tonight watching Warriors Clippers.
Oh yeah, I have a parlay going for that game, so I'm gonna watch it too.
Yeah. All that being said, I wish I could watch more. That's why I admire Zach Lowe so much. Like he calls it eating his vegetables. Like he watches 2 full NBA games every day. I wish I had the time to do that, but maybe someday we'll see.
I mean, once your kids turn like 15, 16, 17, 18, they're out of the house a little bit more. It might be a little bit easier.
Yes.
That's probably what it's 6 and 2. It's not happening.
It'll get easier when that time comes.
And Jonathan, thank you so much again for the time. I really appreciate this. Right before
No,
you
it's all
go,
good.
I wanted to ask you one question based on the podcast you did last night, the post game show where the Knicks destroyed the Nets 142-118. You opened your podcast with a quote, or like you were trying to figure it out, but you basically ended up with New Yorkers are resilient and that it's easier, or we're more used to handling getting up from negative news more so than actually dealing with positive news one way or another. And I want to run a quick hypothesis by you and tell me what you think of it.
Sure.
So most New Yorkers are Knicks fans, right? It's not like the Nets aren't close in fandom.
They are not.
But the Yankees and Mets are probably like 60-40, 65-35. The Jets and Giants are probably like 60-40, 55-45. My hypothesis is that people that grew up as Mets Jets fans are naturally glass half empty, and people that grew up Yankees Giants fans know how to handle the good times rolling better because they're glass half full. And I know you follow basketball by far above and beyond more than anything else, but what do you think of that hypothesis?
I think that's true, and I think that that's true. I grew up a Yankee fan. I'm not gonna lie. And
you've seen more success than I have.
Well, yeah, but I faded away from baseball, after, I'm trying to think when, probably after like around like 2009, 2010. And then I met my wife a few years later, and she was at the time a very big Met fan. So
let's go.
Yeah, so like I was like, okay, we could watch the Mets, and then I kind of got into the Mets because the Mets. I don't have to tell you, like it was Harvey, and it was DeGrom, and it was Syndergaard, and it was the whole thing. And that was a lot of fun. So like I kind of became like a quasi Mets fan for a few years, and then we had kids, and then we just didn't have time for any of that anymore.
Right.
But I think having grown up, my dad to this day is still a Jet fan, so I certainly know what it is to be around a Jet fan, and like Andrew, obviously he's Mets and Jets. I think there's something to that. I still am going to push back though. I think New Yorkers are just better equipped to just handle adversity as opposed to dealing with everything's going well, because like it's I don't know, it's just so unfamiliar to me. That's all.
We're naturally I'm walking here, my glass is half empty, get on my way type of people, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's seriously, it's like how do I navigate the next problem? That is, to me,
yes,
that is the quintessential New York, whatever you want to call it, mindset. What characterizes New Yorkers is just like the ability, like we'll figure it out. Like,
yes,
it doesn't matter what it is, we'll figure it out. So all of a sudden, if there's no problem to figure out, then it's like, well, what do we do?
That means there's a problem somewhere else. I'm gonna find a puzzle to put together.
No, but that's why you laugh. It's like, the Knicks are playing as good a ball as we can remember, and like I'll get on a post game, and people will find, like right now, for instance, it's RJ. People will find things to complain about, and I get it, because that's in our DNA to a certain extent. So
it really is.
That's the best I could do.
I'm gonna ask you one last question, then I'll let you go. It should be really quick. Thank you again for your time.
No, of course, man.
Dude, you're the best. Honestly, like I said, you're one of my absolute heroes for the next content creating. I want to do what you're doing.
You're great at it, so you're on your way.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So the last question is that is there any part of you that actually prefers the Knicks, knowing that they've been road warriors this year? They've started defending home court more recently. I think they've won 5 or 6 in a row at home. Is there any part of you that would rather them be the 5 or the 6 in a 4 or 5 or 3-6 matchup?
No, I mean, the Knicks fan PTSD in me might prefer that, because I could sit here and I could put on a steely face and say all kinds of things about how well where we're at as an organization. We could play the Cavs, and the Cavs should beat us, even if we do have home court advantage. This and that. I will not believe a word of that, because if Donovan Mitchell beats us, if the Cavs beat the Knicks and behind Donovan Mitchell, that's just going to be hard to accept. So like, it's a little easier if we're the 5 than the 4, and then if we're the 6, And to be clear, I do want to be in the 4-5 because I think we will have a better chance of beating
I
Cleveland.
think the Cavs are worse than the Sixers for sure, and Embiid's the best player out of all those people, obviously.
Well, I think very highly of Joel Embiid. But like, if we did play the Sixers, like you want to talk about playing with house money, all of the pressure in the world at that point is on the Sixers. Now, how do we arrive at that 6 seed? Is it a Miami, or I guess it would have to probably be Miami. Like, do they just like catch fire and go, like 17-5 down the stretch of their season, and we play well, but we just don't quite have it? Like,
we lose both games to them in this scenario.
Yeah, they close games. Like, narrative always matters because like NBA players pay attention to narrative, and the media pays attention to narrative, and the media builds up storylines that the players then like all the shit is connected. So to me, I just like, I don't know. This may sound trite or shallow or whatever, but like, I want to end this season with the vibes being good, and that may sound ridiculous. That is honestly right now, that's my only goal. So however that happens, I will be happy. And if that involves winning a playoff series, great. I mean, who knows? Like, again, my idol Zach Lowe went on a podcast today and was like, "Yeah, I think the Knicks could beat the Sixers." He's not picking them, but just thinking that like that's a possibility to say those words.
The odds
like,
are closer than they would have been a month ago, for sure.
Yeah, and like, and again, like I said it last night, like what, or I actually, I said this I think today on the putback with Ian. I was like, to say that oh no, the Knicks are definitely going to lose this series or that series against any team right now. That's disrespectful to what they've accomplished. It really is, and it's disrespectful to how well they're playing, and it's disrespectful to a roster that for whatever it's lacking in top end talent. And boy, with every Jalen Brunson performance, I question whether they really are lacking in top end talent. But like, they make up for in real two-way depth, and pieces that fit well together, and guys who know and embrace their roles, and all those sorts of things. So
100%.
I'm excited to see where it goes. That's all. And I love this team, and I'm happy that it's where it's at right now. And I'm happy they're getting a little bit of national love and attention, because that's pretty cool.
And it's not Knicks for Klitz for once, so they're not laughing at us.
No.
They're actually enjoying our success.
Yeah, as they should be. It's a good basketball team.
Jonathan, thank you so much, sir. You are, like I said, you're a hero of mine. I can't appreciate this or thank you enough. I hope to be where you're at one day, some way, somehow. Again, everyone, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Pods, and Podbean. Follow us on Twitter. Join our Facebook group. Jonathan Macri can be found. If you Google Knicks Film Skool, you will see his face on 35 different apps. He's even on TV. He does betting. Find him literally anywhere. I'm telling this to the 9 people that listen to me that don't know who you are.
I appreciate having me on. I never mind kind of telling my story, because it reminds me how lucky I am. Not that I need to be reminded of that, but it does remind me. And yeah, we'll do this again in the summertime, man. This was fun.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
All right, be well.
You too.